Hey, how are you? Welcome to the Coding Zoo. If this is your first time joining. My name is Shane, and this is the JavaScript building block series. In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to build ES6 classes, how to create JavaScript objects with ES6 classes. Pretty neat stuff. Definitely recommend you learn how to do this if that sounds interesting to you. Hey, let's go ahead and we'll jump right in. Hey, let's jump right in. So I have a index.html page here. Just a basic page. I've got a couple of buttons thrown on there, and I'm including a main.js. That's where we're going to do most of our work. Here's our main.js. I went ahead and prepared the code so we can move through this pretty quickly. Let's go ahead and run that page. Let's see what we get. All right, so got my web page here. I've got two buttons. Click on the buttons. Of course, they don't do anything. Let's go back to the page. Let's talk about ES6 classes. We've talked about how you can use like a factory function to create objects. And we talked about how objects have, properties and behaviors. If you haven't seen those videos, I'll put them at the end of this video. Be sure to check them out. So here's a factory function, and it creates a contact object. And this object has a name, age, and eye color property. Just as a reminder, let's go ahead and show you how that works. I have function create contact and returns a new object using a object literal. Now I'm going to go ahead and use that object. Notice how I am using the object above the definition of this factory function. So the function is here, but the code that uses the function is way up here. So in JavaScript, certain functions, certain things are hoisted. This function will actually be hoisted to be ran before these items. So that's called hoisting. So I have constant Shane equals create contact, which I'm calling this factory function. And I'm going to write out my age. So if the hoisting works correctly, should see age written out underneath the buttons. Let's try that out. So I'm going to refresh. And there's my age and 23. And I wish I was 23. So that's one nice way you can create objects in JavaScript. It's one of my favorite ways of creating objects, much better than other options. Now with ES6, there's a new way. Now, me coming from a Java background or C# background, I'm used to using classes. So with ES6, JavaScript created the use of classes. So with ES6, we now have the ability to create classes. Now think of classes as just a template. It's just a way of creating the same object with different properties more than once, pretty much like this factory function. The difference is with classes, you can get into inheritance and you can extend the class and you can have different subclasses. So if you live in the functional world for a long time, you probably don't like the idea of having inheritance and having classes that extend to other classes. Composition is definitely the best way to go when you can, but sometimes it makes sense to have class hierarchies, have inheritance. In those times, though, of course, you want to be careful. You want to do them for the right reason, and you don't want to overdo it. So let's go ahead and show you how this class works. So I have keyword class, and I'm just going to call it contact, and it has a constructor. So a constructor is the first thing that runs when you create an object from this class. It's also the way you would pass in values that can be used as properties or as internal state to that object. So this is a constructor. And notice in this constructor, I am setting properties. So I'm setting a this.name, a this.age, and a this.eye color. So pretty, very similar to the object literal here. So I have the contact, I have constructor, I'm passing values in, and I'm setting them as properties. So if you look here, I have a function called call. Because this function is on a class, it's on an object, it should be called a method. So this is a method called call. That's almost a tongue twister. So this call method, as in like calling a phone, it writes out the name property. You can make it do whatever you want. It could be business logic. It could perform all kinds of formulas. You can do whatever you want. But this, for example, this is a function, a method on the object, right? Now, in the document literal, you can, of course, do the same thing. You define a property and assign it a function. This is the same, except we're creating a class. Now, just like with the factory function, I need to create an object from this class. So I'm going to go here and create a constant called Nick. Nick has a Nicholas for name. It has age 10 and it has brown. Now I'm going to write out the property of name from that object called Nick, and then I'm going to call Nick on the phone using nick.call. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to save that and click refresh. And there we go. My son's name is Nicholas, and it says calling Nicholas. So I was able to use that class, create an object, and access those properties on an object, and actually call the methods on the object, call the function call. So pretty simple, pretty neat. So this is called a class. Think of it as a template. It is a good replacement for factory functions. I love how this works. So that's it. Nothing to it. Hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you like this video, click like below. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click subscribe. At the end of this video, I'm going to show you some links to other videos we have on JavaScript objects. Be sure to check them out. Thanks for joining, and I hope you have a great week.